Obi Trice, real name, no gimmicks. Welcome to the Clery football channel. And Liverpool, they are your Premier League champions, which is nice. They've done it with 4 games to spare. They've blown every other team away. And yet, you have seen on the internet people trying to somehow diminish what they have done here. Oh, it was dead boring. Oh, we're really lucky. I am somehow underwhelmed by it all. And no. This was a monumental achievement, and I will now tell you both why and also how. And just right quick before we start, okay, this background, it's a placeholder. We're getting nice, slick, sexy, overproduced, amazing motion graphics made for the channel, and this is just there until we've got that. But I have now read so many comments about the background that just for this video, as a special treat, we'll change it from this to this. Yeah, it's probably a bit much. It's probably a bit much, that one. We'll go with this. That's nice, isn't it? Anyway, though, yes, the football. Liverpool's system this season is remarkably easy to explain, ironically, because it is a 4-2-3-1. It's not really a 4-2-3-1. It's actually a 4-move-3-3. And the reason for that is because Jurgen Klopp spent 2 whole years trying to turn his 4-3-3, the heavy metal, gegenpressing, blood and comb and thunder side, and make them a more controlled, possession-based team that could better dictate the tempo in matches, which they had some success with, but at their heart, the true song that their soul sang was one of direct, counter-attacking, vertical, high-paced football. Now, I could talk genuinely for an hour about all this, but it's all best summarised by the last few years of Trent Alexander-Arnold's career. You remember the original Klopp ball system? You had these two getting quite narrow near the centre forward, and all the width came from the fullbacks. It was Robertson on that side, but Alexander-Arnold on this side. But then what Klopp tried to do instead was he had Alexander-Arnold move into the middle here to get you better sort of technical possession base, because he's really good with the ball. And the problem with that was that it meant that Mo Salah and the other wide forward tended to get stuck more out on the flank. But this is Liverpool history. You've no doubt heard it a million times by now, half of which were probably from me. Arne Slot came in and he looked basically at this team and thought, you know what? This is actually quite a good idea for helping us to control games of football, but also, and I'll just do a quick magic trick here, this is a good idea for helping us to kick teams in the dick. So why don't we see if we can't blend the two? And the way he did that almost overnight was just painfully simple. And already at the club when he got there, right? And it was all Ryan Gravenberch. And don't get me wrong, I do think Jurgen Klopp really liked him for his athleticism and sort of his obvious traits, but he did want a more technical base in front of the defence, hence Alexander-Arnold and McAllister as that sort of inverted double pivot, because you wanted to be able to progress the ball forward. But it turns out if you just trust him at the base of your midfield, not only is he a defensive monster in a way that neither Alexander-Arnold nor Alexis McAllister are, but he is also a press-resistant, teams really struggle to get the ball off him, ball progression machine. He just does it not by passing forward quite neatly or quite incisively, but by getting it on the half turn, a genuinely difficult skill to master, and then just running with it. And what I find honestly really interesting and unique about him as a footballer is there are virtually no other teams anymore that are happy to have one player at the base of the midfield but then still give them the ball. Normally, if you're in there on your own, you get bypassed in the build-up. You're a metronomic bully boy. You just break up attacks and you move it left to right when you do get it. But he is a massive part of how Liverpool actually play. He's playing a genuinely unique role in the Premier League this season, and it meant that almost overnight, Liverpool ceased to need 2 players in this area to make sure they didn't lose the ball. So instead, they could flip it round, see if I can do that right, and push both the fullbacks on to be both higher and wider. So now these two do still offer you solutions in the build-up. They can go a bit narrower, they can go a bit deeper, they can help you play around, but they're also much better positioned to then push up the pitch and allow the 2 forwards to play nearer to the goal. Like you see here in the Spurs game, right? Salah comes short and Alexander-Arnold does something that we did not see at all last season. He looks to break in behind him. And because with Gravenberch here, you've got this other way of adding width to the side, it's really changed how Mo Salah has been able to play this season. He's no longer constantly stuck out on the right-hand side, having to do everything outside to in, but it means large parts of the game he now spends in this sort of space between the centre and the touchline, the half space as it's called, and he's the best player in the world in that half space. And also, very conveniently, it puts Trent Alexander-Arnold more frequently back in this Beckham zone, in which he is one of the best players in the world in that position. And if we look at his numbers, I'll just go back to that seasonal heat map so you can enjoy a more multimedia experience while I explain this. His passes into the penalty area, which are very good, they're up. His assists per 90 minutes, they're up. And Clery, one of the best things he does in world football, his crosses into the penalty area, they are way up. Because you cannot fucking cross it into the penalty area from a holding number 6 role, can you? You have to be around here, which is where he should always be. But the thing is, and this is something else you've got to give Arne Slot an enormous amount of praise for, it's really, really flexible. Mo Salah is still allowed to go out onto that right-hand side if he wants to go out there, and he wants to go out to in to attack the penalty area. And Alexander-Arnold is likewise completely free to wander in to the centre of midfield if he feels like he needs to get on the ball and help dictate the play from there. He entrusts this team with way more freedom than a Guardiola or an Arteta does. Like again, go back to the Spurs game. For the equaliser, Salah picks the ball up wide and allows Szoboszlai to make the inside-out run on the defender here. And Salah, because he's excellent at creating chances, isn't just a goal-scoring machine, he makes stuff really well. He slips them in. For the second goal, same position, and this time they use it to drag Udogie miles away from the back line to try and exploit the space here. Exploit the space. I could do a retake of that, but I just think it's really funny. Anyway, they mess this up and they lose the ball, but oh no! Who's that monster truck in a pair of Adidas F50 Elites? Why, it's only ball-winning machine Ryan Gravenberch. But then you look at the counter-attack goal, he wants it through the centre of the pitch. The fifth goal, he is the central centre-forward getting in the box to force the mistake from Udogie. And you rewind all of those goals back and look at where Trent Alexander-Arnold is. He's in that wide position when they need him to be, but he's also taking up central positions when that's an option. Because he hasn't really been able to buy any players or put his stamp on Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, Arne Slot's Liverpool is just all the best bits of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, but combined in-game. Like sometimes they'll set up one way, sometimes they'll set up the other, sometimes they'll change in between matches. They're dynamic, they're flexible, they're adaptable. It's legitimately one of the single best debut Premier League season coaching accomplishments I think I've ever seen. And Salah, in particular, has thrived with this additional freedom that he's being offered. Like, just pulling some random stats out from last season to this, he carries the ball into the penalty area more, he's getting more assists, and he's scoring more goals from less shots, which might sound like a bit weird, like, oh, Salah's actually getting less chances in this system. But last year, it felt to me like he cut a frustrated figure, like he was trying to force everything himself, like he didn't trust the system or the players around him, and he was just trying to make it all happen. But now, though, he feels like he's in a team where he trusts those around him and he trusts the system a bit more, and that's enabled him to make better decisions. So he shoots less, but the times when he chooses to shoot are better opportunities to shoot, hence why his goals have shot right up and his chance creation has shot right up. He's making better decisions because he is enabled and entrusted to do so. And just speaking of trust really quickly, it would be remiss of me not to point out a key reason for that trust. Cody Gakpo. Because you've got Gravenberch here, which enables the fullbacks to get higher up, that allows both the forwards to come in off the wing and attack central areas. And now Gakpo, one of the best finishers Liverpool has, is getting on the end of either like slide passes from Salah as he gets into this area, or Alexander-Arnold's delivery from wider. Like, he has very quietly, I think, had an excellent season coming off that flank to be a natural sort of target for both the ways that Salah and Alexander-Arnold like to create. He's got 17 goals in all competitions this season, which is more than he got last season, despite the fact he's played like 10 or 12 less games so far. And it is a gross oversimplification, and I am at pains to just dig a random player out, right? But the stat that people love to show how reliable you are in front of goal, which is goals minus XG, and I know XG, but it's like, how many are you getting versus what does the data say you should be getting, right? You want a positive number there. Gakpo this season is one of the league's biggest overperformers. Not only is he taking the chances he should, but he's also managing to get goals that maybe are incredibly hard as well. And last season, Núñez was one of the league's biggest underperformers. So not only was he not getting the harder goals, he wasn't really getting any. Now, yes, again, massive oversimplification and stats could often be incredibly misleading, but tell me that does not directly correspond with what you already thought with your eyes. And there are just like a million other things you could point out about what makes this team tick. Like Konaté's been fantastic. Szoboszlai's work off the ball has been like absolutely game-changing. Like Gakpo is one of the league's most frequent receivers of a progressive pass, which is like a forward ball or anything that goes into the box. And that's because having Gravenberch here alleviates McAllister of being in that area and allows him to play in this favoured left-hand space that he likes to be in, so he's directly feeding Gakpo when he comes in off the wing. Now look, here's his passes from the Tottenham game. I've just thought that's maybe... I haven't actually checked to see if these correspond with what I think, but I bet they do, right? I haven't looked at these. I bet there's way more here from McAllister than there is here. I bet he was barely needed in the build-up at all, and he could just focus on this area. That, again, that's from the Gravenberch thing. He has been a one-man solution to a two-man problem, and because this has worked so well, it's allowed all these other elements of the squad to thrive and ultimately dominate the Premier League. Like, I'm blown away by Liverpool this year. I think they were absolutely fantastic, and yet people are trying to talk it down. And just, if you'd be so kind, right, let me tell you why that is bollocks. 567 players have appeared in the Premier League this season. If we rank them all by the total number of minutes they played and then remove all the goalkeepers, which I'm allowed to do, by the way, remember, I am a goalkeeper. You see, look, that's me over there, and you're right, absolutely incredible, but let's not get distracted. If we take away the goalkeepers, rank all these players in the league by minutes, are Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk. In spite of the expanded Champions League format going all the way to the Carabao Cup final, Liverpool somehow got more minutes out of two Premier League all-time greats than virtually any other outfield players this season. And that's astonishing. Like, what it says about their physical conditioning speaks for itself. At the ages they are, they should be enduring a physical decline, but they've both been absolutely amazing this season. But what it means, deep down, is that virtually every single minute any team was playing Liverpool this season, you had one player on the pitch who could potentially win it for them out of absolutely nothing, and one player on the pitch who could probably do anything to stop you winning it. So, obviously, if you have that, you probably win the league. So, I mean, that's really fortunate, isn't it? What a stroke of luck having your two most important players available for every single minute this season, while your nearest rivals, they lose Rodri and Haaland, so that really scuppered Manchester City season. Arsenal would have done something, but they were without Saka and Havertz and Ødegaard, for large parts Gabriel now as well. How lucky, you might say. Well, I mean, you might, but me being a dreadful nerd who gets on the internet and talks about data and stats and whatnot, I personally, I would not. I would say instead that this is probably the most impressive thing about Liverpool's title win. This was the plan. Loads was made in the summer about Liverpool not making any signings, and if I may riff very heavily on the wonderful piece on theindependent.com by friend of the channel / man who sits about 15 feet away from me, Miguel Delaney, they did get one signing absolutely bang on this summer. Arne Slot. In the wake of Klopp's departure, right, Michael Edwards wanted to massively push the club towards being led by data. Now, it's obviously not fair to say that Klopp was stopping this happening or he was resistant to this kind of change, but he was the central figure at the club and he was way more of a vibes guy, so this was never going to happen to this extent while he was there. So to replace him, Liverpool knew they wanted someone who was adaptable, yes, tactically flexible, experienced in doing a rebuild, all of that, but who would also buy into this idea of going full in on the data big time. And Slot was just all of those things big time. Like, I'm just lifting this again straight from Miguel's article, so you should go and read that on the website. So I feel less like I'm just doing intellectual property theft. But Liverpool basically took advantage of Slot's lack of ego by handing enormous influence to Jonathan Power, the director of medicine, and Conall Murtagh, the head of physical performance. And those two, amongst others that Slot brought with him as well, are at the very sort of advanced cutting edge of like player data. They use every single tool you can imagine, and probably some you can't, to stay on top of the data, to know every single metric about every single player. So you take that and you combine it with Slot's adaptable approach that means Liverpool can be really high tempo and aggressive and in your face when they want to be, but also equally comfortable being controlled, being possession based, conserving their energy and taking their foot off the gas. And that means that all of a sudden, you've got the potential to have the best managed squad in terms of fitness and injuries in the league. And like, yes, fair enough, you might be a little bit skeptical about this, but just go and look at the results. Like, after Salah and Van Dijk, who's the next most important Liverpool player in terms of keeping them on the pitch for as long as possible this season? You scroll slightly further down, there's Ryan Gravenberch. They managed to get almost the entire season out of him as well. Like, don't get me wrong, they have had injuries, accidents can happen, but out of all the top clubs, when the one who is putting the most time and effort and money and resources into mitigating against injuries has by some distance the fewest sort of season impacting injuries, I think we can draw a line there. I think we can say that's been a success. So you take all of that with how flexible Slot has been and how he's got more out of the players who were there rather than having to dip into the transfer market, and then the individual performances of so many of these players, and that, from the very top of the club right down to what happens on the pitch, is an absolutely incredible achievement. And if you're trying to belittle this, I don't know why you watch football. If you can't be impressed by this, there's no point in any of it. And you know what? I try not to say stuff like this, but if you do come across on the internet, or the radio, or the television, somebody saying that this is just luck and they're not very impressed, just have more respect for yourself. Don't watch it. Oh, but then what should I watch? Adam, I've got all this time to fill. Great question. ACFC. Me, right here. So please subscribe to the channel. The button is somewhere around. I'm feeling it. I am feeling 100,000 subs before the end of the season. I want that. I want that more than Slot wanted this Premier League title. Maybe. You can get me across all the social medias at Adam Clery, Clery. Gentle reminder, I'm doing the Hackney Half Marathon in like 2 weeks. Still haven't got a watch for Calm, the campaign against living miserably, a suicide prevention charity here in the UK. That's their logo. Look, it's really nice. The link is in the description. If you've got a spare $5 or a spare tenner kicking around, it does go really, really far, and I'm very proud to be running for them, even though it's going to be really hot and I'm going to collapse. And that's it. Just congratulations to Liverpool, the best team in the Premier League by a mile. I wait with bated breath to see what they do with this team next season. I think that's going to be a really exciting summer for them, one way or another. Goodbye. Ooh, hit me. Get that looked at. See you later.